Okay. All righty. Good evening, everyone. This is Brock Beard from NASCAR.info. Happy we are back and quite the opening round, if I do say so myself. That just coming after the conclusion of the first Busch Clash to be held on the Daytona infield road course, and certainly a lot to talk about. We'll also talk about the news from yesterday as well that I posted on the website. But first and foremost, again, hope you had a great off season and are ready for all the action this week. I'm going to try to do a few streams, as many live streams as I can this week. Maybe not every night. I'd like to do one after the duels, at least. Maybe on Saturday after the Xfinity race, and then certainly one on Sunday. That's kind of the tentative schedule right now, although that's still up in the air. um, Blue Cup, thank you, first of all, for the super chat right off the bat here. The worst part is that Ty Dillon was just okay. Well, again, we talked about this in a lot of previous shows with 2311 Racing. We have to keep our expectations very reasonable. Same applies to Trackhouse and all these other teams that are starting up here. They could just as easily be a Joe Gibbs Racing, or they could be a Hall of Fame Racing, or one of these other programs that have been started up that have ultimately gone by the wayside. Keep in mind, the Germain Racing and Levine Family Racing that closed last year that ultimately gave these teams life started off the very same way a whole decade ago. So that's going to be a different situation there. Yeah, it's definitely a lot to certainly talk about for the race. I think what I'm going to have to do after this one, I may actually have to start posting my fantasy picks for winning the race. I have to be so clear on that, given what I do cover, that I'm doing picks to win the race, yet not to finish last. I may actually do that. The competition my brother and I have through the year, I think that turned out this race was certainly a good indication of that. Since I had Chase Elliott and my brother had Martin Truex Jr. Truex now unofficially your last place finisher, which I have not forgotten to remind him there in our little rivalry here. Looked like I was going to be able to get. We actually in our competition, a little behind the curtain here. When we do our picks each week, we just do picks for the race winner, not for the last place finisher. And if one of us wins either the Clash or the All-Star race, we give ourselves 10 bonus points. So you better believe, watching this here, at least for the fantasy pick thing, I was definitely pulling for Chase to pull off the win. And he was definitely laughing pretty hard when Kyle Busch pulled off that pass at the end at the very last moment. So definitely, probably be something we'll add to the repertoire of everything. We do picks every week. We've actually been doing that since back in 2002, and I'm afraid at picking winners, if I've picked more than my share of last place finishers. So you can take my picks one way or the other, but I certainly make no guarantees as to how good they could be. That'll certainly be the case here. Oh goodness, Beast of Metal, thank you for the couple of super chats here. That was a damn good race. Now, please allow me to be salty as F because Alan Gustafson is a stooge who manages tires like I manage electronics. Well, again, agree to disagree here. Even Cole Custer said he was out of tires, so maybe the tire issue is a bigger problem for everybody here. But all kinds of problems throughout the field. Radio was pretty entertaining. I didn't hear Joey Logano's issue when he had the apparently a little repeat of Carl Edwards' situation in 2006, where he avoided an accident, was still black flagged for it. In this case, Logano violating apparently the rule that you're supposed to go single file pit road. I mentioned this on Twitter. For those of you that don't recall, in 1999, in the fall race at Charlotte, there was a controversial moment. One of the many chances he had at getting his first Cup win was taken from him in Charlotte because Jeff Gordon pulled to his inside there, made Skinner slow down a little bit more to get to his pit stall, and Gordon ended up coming up with, I believe he came up with the victory if it wasn't Bobby Labonte in that one. So at least since then, we've had a lot of these rules where NASCAR governs people coming down single file. I guess it doesn't get called. It gets called so infrequently because it's been around for so long and we don't really see it that often. But that would probably be a factor in how all this comes together there. But yeah, that's my understanding on that. But Beast of Metal, I certainly understand your frustration there when it comes to tire strategy. I think it does, it would be something to kind of learn more about. Hopefully we'll get some more information. Again, the Cole Custer thing with his problems there entering the tri-oval was enough by itself to put him in a situation where he didn't have enough tires. But yeah, I agree with you. Certainly, the tire management was going to be that much more critical without having them set up there. So that definitely played a role in the finish here at the same time. But also with you, Blue Cup, yeah, Ty Dillon again. It's too bad he had kind of a rough afternoon there, but it seemed like everybody, again, knocking the rust off, like Mike Joy was saying frequently in the broadcast there. I think that was an accurate way to put it there at the same time. I also want to, Michael Jensen, thank you for your super chat on here. I want to get to yours as well. NASCAR is 1-for-1 in changes this year. That was way better than on the oval. Again, yeah, definitely chime in. I'm already seeing some comments from everybody on this too. But again, thank you for the super chat on that. Yeah, I mean, certainly different from the oval. I think that we still had kind of a cluster F with this race here to a degree, but a little bit more racing was going on versus last year. Well, really the last 2 years. If you think back to 2019, when everybody was single file, Jimmy ducked out of line, wrecked the entire field, and took the win before the rain came. And then you had last year where everybody wrecked at every conceivable moment. It's kind of amazing that Kyle Busch, who went from last in that race last year to first in it this year, completed the record most laps of any last place finisher of the Clash in that event. We had kind of a bizarre situation in that circumstance, but a little bit of everything. I will say I'm biased towards road course racing. I've always enjoyed it. I'm still not entirely sold on infield road courses, especially the one at Daytona. Given the race here last August, I thought was pretty lackluster. The last place battle was good. Stanton Barrett and Brendan Gaughan put on a great show there at the end. That was exciting to follow. And ultimately, Martin Truex Jr.'s situation tonight was settled in the last 3 or 4 laps as well between himself and Cole Custer. So an interesting circumstance with all of that. But yeah, unofficially, again, Truex still shown as your last place finisher for the race, just edging Cole Custer. Truex the only retiree for the race, although several drivers had problems. Kevin Harvick had a miserable night dealing with the mud. I know I'm seeing some comments in here already. Certainly the mud is one big thing to talk about. I don't recall that coming up as much in the 24 hours of Daytona we had a couple weeks ago. Obviously, performance car is able to get through that chicane a little bit more cleanly. Although, I mean, it's no doubt that, they could have the same issues, especially in the lower divisions there, kicking up some dirt. But certainly the NASCAR cars that get through that chicane with the brutality that they do at Watkins Glen on their inner loop probably should have been something they should prepare a little better for. But didn't expect the first dirt race of the year to not be the Bristol race in a little bit, but made things exciting. But problems for Truex, though, of course, a heartbreaker there. The fact that he was leading, had to come from the back of the field at least twice, had a little bit of a brain fart with him and the spotter there, missing the chicane there at one point, dropping him to the back. Had a great car out there. I think coming into this, it certainly seemed that Chase Elliott has really figured out the infield road courses, whereas Truex's strength seems to be on the natural road courses, Sears Point, Watkins Glen, and so on. But Truex definitely closing the gap here. I think that he's going to definitely have something to say when they knock the dents out of that car when we come back to this race as a points race after the 500. Maybe we will see a bit of a good show there. Also, perhaps the drivers being a little bit more comfortable figuring out the strategy of that last chicane. It was certainly decisive between the finish of this race tonight, whereas it really wasn't so much, at least on the Cup side last year. Hopefully that augurs well for a better race at the end of this month than we saw in August. But again, I'm still not entirely sold on this track. But I will say, my biggest concern coming into this race was the field getting strung out, not seeing a lot of action, that you're going to have basically just green flag racing in both stages, and that was going to be it. Far from the case. We had a lot of drivers running over each other. We had people, stoving in the nose, overdriving the first corner into the infield portion. And, I think it made for a very entertaining race. I was thoroughly entertained for a couple of reasons on that, in that respect. You even had a good last place battle for sure. Kudos again to Cole Custer's team for getting the 41 back out there. And also appreciate the clarification on the rules there on Twitter here, that apparently NASCAR was approaching this a bit differently, that they're going to do it in the points races as to the DVP and the 6-minute clock. However, at the same time, again, what I was clarifying is that NASCAR was still keeping track of drivers reaching minimum speed. So the clock, I guess, was still working. but maybe just not focusing on it as much as they would at the 500 and the races going forward from here. But the DVP was immediately called once Truex went behind the wall, so it was very clear that he was done for the night. And of course, that turned out very hard hit there on the backstretch. I got to say that was certainly a bit shocking there with how that played out at the same time. Let's see. Checking out here. Make sure I'm not missing anything else here. All right. Yeah, Beast of Metals mentioning, look at you managed. Oh, I thought you were talking about a screen protector for the cars because all the dirt kicked up there. But yeah, it's goodness. If you're cracking the screen protector onto the actual screen of your phone, I think you're dialing things a little bit too quickly. Let's see. Really, again, I think generally we had a pretty good, pretty good race though in this. I think if you have the choice between multiple crashes and just a complete mess out there versus an actual competitive race, whether on the oval or otherwise, I think that's preferable. And I definitely understand the frustration of waiting over the off season and then your first race is on the road course when you're anxious to see the action on the oval. I think that actually favors better for the duels and the action leading into this weekend. You're excited to see what is going to happen on the oval. You're not giving all of it away now, or seeing something that happens in the clash and saying, oh man, this is going to be just a complete crash fest this entire week. I think maybe this was a better strategy in that sense there, because I know that's what I'm thinking. I'm going to be curious what the difference is going to be between who is strong in the road course versus who's going to be strong on the super speedway. And luckily we're not going to have to wait that long because we're going to have qualifying tomorrow, the duels Thursday, and then the top 3 series through the weekend. So maybe, this is a good strategy. I'd certainly be happy to declare that NASCAR is doing something right for once when it comes to their schedule changes and not just something as a gimmick necessarily. So hopefully we'll get get something along the way there. But yeah, I'm seeing comments about trivia. We'll do some trivia questions here in a little bit. As always, we'll certainly talk more about the race here to kick things off. We'll find out if anybody's disqualified. We won't stay too long here for waiting for disqualification results, but we'll certainly find out if that's going to be the case later tonight. Let's see. Adam, I'm seeing your comment here. Let's see. If practice would have been a factor here with the new aero package, I don't know. It probably had a factor in how crazy this was. There were so many different factors in this, between the fact that there's been so little cup racing on the Daytona infield road course, that the race last year also didn't have practice or qualifying, and that of course they're not going to be running on this course the rest of this week. So it's a little tricky on that. I don't know if you would have really fixed this up so much. I think actually if you had more practice, maybe you would have had less happening because people would have been more prepared and everything in that case. We maybe would have had something that I would have been more concerned about the field being more strung out, people's cars handling a little better. Would it have been a better race? I don't know. It's a tough call, but it certainly made things entertaining. So I can certainly agree with that. Let's see. So Wrinkleson, Greg Galding in the 52 car for Means. That's fantastic news on that front. Good for both of them, really. Galding has way outperformed equipment with SS Greenlight Racing, and even in his limited starts that he had last year, I think any team that could get him at this point, especially in the Xfinity Series, is a good way to certainly do it. Let's see. Kudos to the people covering the last place battle in the ARCA East Series race. I didn't catch that yesterday, but I'm seeing the comment here about Dick Doney on that. So kudos to the people sharing the pictures from all that action as well. All right. I'm just kind of browsing through this here. I like the comment that NASCAR.com used. I think their headline, their tentative one, is taking candy from the kids. So Kyle Busch, it's hard to think of Kyle Busch as one of the aged drivers of the field these days, but since his number of Daytona 500 starts without a win is now rivaling the likes of Buddy Baker, Darrell Waltrip, and of course Dale Earnhardt, I guess that's definitely part of the conversation at this point. So that was kind of fun. Let's see. I liked Mike Joy mentioning the let's say other version of the crank it up logo. I thought that was a good little jab there. Mike Joy is very canny to the social media angle of everything there too. You never know what he's watching there, so that's why I think he's definitely one of the best that's still involved in the sport and the TV broadcasting these days. On that subject, Clint Boyer I think did a solid job here. I don't think he was too distracting in the booth here with him playing off Jeff Gordon. I think the two of them. I think Boyer certainly seemed to interact with Gordon more than with Mike Joy, which was fine. I think that was the way this was billed. So I think it was a solid start, much like with a lot of this year. So I think that'll be certainly one to talk about. Looking at this. Yeah, people rooting for Kyle Busch to get disqualified. Well, if he does get last in the Clash twice, 2 years in a row, that would certainly be something to talk about too. We'll have the article for you guys on that later tonight, and the first part of tomorrow will be our article on the Clash. Also, check out our full entry list article that's already on the LastCard.info site, posted earlier this morning. That was certainly a challenge to write because the chain reaction throughout the field was very difficult to track. It was very hard to break it up in the way that I usually do, where I'm just talking about one team at a time, because I think that the meat of that article, I talked basically about 8 teams in a row. But I think that's important to do because a lot of the hype going into the season, of course, this best season ever, greatest season ever, this is a great start for it, I think that's good. But at the end of the day, we got 44 teams. We had 43 at Daytona last year. So there's still some things that NASCAR is working on, that should be working on, to get more teams involved in the sport. But I guess one car is still progress, no matter how many other teams were shut down in the process here. Let's see. Yeah, Larry McReynolds. The only thing I noticed with Larry McReynolds tonight was the fact that everybody was calling him Big Daddy now. Like, I thought that was over once Jeff Gordon retired. Of course, I guess Gordon's now in the booth, so maybe that was where that was. I think they just do. That's the thing I noticed them doing more than anything else. We'll do another entry list storylines article. I guess we got so much to cover here. We're going to do another entry list storylines article this week for the Xfinity and the Truck Series. Of course, those entry lists haven't been posted yet. Expect that to have that up certainly by Friday. I don't know when those lists are going to be available. I'm also planning on doing a starting grid video for the Daytona 500 this year. I haven't announced that yet. I don't really even have a format clear in my mind yet. I have had one that I've kind of had on the back burner that I haven't used to this point. I may actually kick that one into gear. It may become necessary because I don't know how much time I'm going to have to work on it between Thursday night and first part of Saturday, which is when I want to have it posted by. But look forward to that on this channel as well. Before we get to trivia, I have to certainly talk about the elephant in the room here. And of course, that is the announcement of my next book. As you saw on this channel here, my next book is going to be a biography of Derek Cope. Now, I know that at first glance, that would sound like a little bit too fortuitous timing, because Cope is one of the big stories coming up this weekend, as he is now locked into the 500, running a second Starcom car with Rick Ware's owner points, that he's locked into the field. So he is now guaranteed to make his first Daytona 500 start since 2004, when he drove for Arnold Motorsports. Of course, one of the teams we featured in Rise of the Field Fillers last November. The team that ended up becoming Germain Racing, that was shut down. And look, again, everything kind of intersects and you have that kind of story. But this project, I've had a very hard time keeping it under my hat. I know I've done a lot of teasers for it. I think the most that I'd mentioned of it, that it was going to be a driver that was still active, still involved in the sport, still with us these days. But it's a project that I've been very excited about doing. And actually, it come together literally in 2018, after we got back from the book signing for the J.D. McDuffie book in Watkins Glen. I felt that the important thing was, in doing books, I don't want to just do books or subject matter on fatal accidents. I don't want to be known as somebody that's just doing that subject. And obviously I've done, content like that, of course, like on 3 Before February and things like that. I want to really diversify and talk about the other similarities to J.D. McDuffie's story that translate into other drivers in the current era. And of course, Derek Cope being a driver that, of course, won 2 Cup Series races, won the Xfinity race at New Hampshire, has been involved in the sport, is still involved in the sport as a team owner, and now again as a driver in the 500. Again, I think the theme that I'm going to be doing, and I mentioned this in the article, is going to be stories that are known but not necessarily understood in NASCAR. And that's going to be, especially in the Cup Series, I think that's going to be the main focus of other books that I'm working on. I actually even have the start of a third book, which I am now not ready to announce yet, because it's basically been on the back burner while this one's getting polished, but it's going to have very much this same tone. So, because NASCAR is chock full of those. There's so much history and there's so many different ways to look at certain events. And there's so many events that are chronicled very well. There's great books about, for example, the 1979 Daytona 500, or multiple books on the 1992 Hooters 500. You got Rick Houston's book. You got the late David Poole's book. Lots of great content out there. What my focus is going to be on doing books is really trying to unpack stories that aren't as well known and drivers that aren't as talked about. And I think that'll be consistent really with the Last Car angle, the angle with Rise of the Field fillers, things like that. And I think that's going to be something that I'm going to be kind of working with going forward. And that's more, of course, long term, because the books take a couple of years to really kind of put together. I'm sure this next one is certainly going to be in the same vein, but very excited about that. So I appreciate you guys' patience waiting for that announcement. Obviously, now I will say this. I know people are going to be asking this. Was I aware that Derek Cope was going to be coming back to the Daytona 500 this year? Absolutely not. No, I was not aware of that until everybody else heard it. I didn't hear about it until everybody else did. It was literally the exact same scenario that we had in 2016 when Front Row Motorsports did the JD McDuffie throwback car. It was just a complete coincidence. And it's a little bit eerie, quite frankly. As we've heard from Derek's media availability last Friday, even Derek wasn't aware that this deal was coming together. By the time he heard about it, his wife Alicia and the team owners, the Kohler brothers, and Bill Woolman over there at Starcom Racing had already put it together. They already worked it out. So it seemed to surprise everybody. So I was not privy to that. I can't take any credit for that. Although there was one time in one of my interviews, I believe it was at Fontana last year, where I asked Derek straight up, it's like, look, do you feel like you could go back out there and run a cup race again? Or do you feel like you can go back out, you can still drive with these kids today? And he didn't even flinch. He said, absolutely. He said it just right away. He didn't, he didn't even flinch, didn't hesitate. I think I remarked at the time, I was like, well, I don't know if that starts something or anything, but didn't think much of it. It was just one, question among many. But, Derek's been a tremendous help in this project and everything. And I'm very pleased to see he's coming back to run the Daytona 500 for what could be his final race. I mean, he's saying that in his interviews last week, that this is potentially going to be the final cup race that he's going to attempt. Obviously, with his team, he's been focusing on that. He and Alicia over there have been doing a great job with that, trying to build an organization there. The sponsors being very involved with it too. But I'll tell you for sure. On top of following the last place battle this weekend, I'm certainly going to be following Cope's story very closely because that's of course one reason the book is not finished. Cope's race this weekend is absolutely. I'm planning on having it in there. And one way or the other, to kind of feature that in the story. And, if he ends up being a last place finisher, hopefully not, but luckily I'm used to doing that. So I could certainly do that as well and try to polish that as best as possible for the narrative. But I'm very excited about being on board for it. Again, a little bit more information about how it really started. Derek Cope was actually the first autograph I got as a fan in 1992. When I went to Sears Point, I was there at the Haulers, and my brother got Terry Labonte's autograph, and I got Derek Cope's. I was wearing a pink Mickey Mouse hat because we just went to Disneyland recently before that, and I still have it. I'll post a picture of it this weekend for sure. I think I did. I might have done that already in the past, actually, but I'll post it again. But he signed the brim of my hat, and I still had that. I showed him the pictures of it, so I thought that was cool. So I think the thing I liked, the first thing that grabbed me is I loved the paint scheme on the Purelator car. I think it always really stood out to me. I know I've talked a lot about Jerry Nadeau being my favorite driver, and which is true. Certainly, in following him in the sport. But this is years before Nadeau, and back when I was much younger. And the paint schemes were the first thing that really attracted me to the sport. And Copes was the one that I think, along with Michael Waltrip's Pennzoil car, I'd have to say, were ones that really stood out to me back then. So it's kind of a matter of this going kind of full circle. But it's very exciting. It's still a little ways off. I'm still planning on having it released sometime this year if I self-publish it. We're still looking for publishers. Obviously, COVID has made that a bit tricky this year. What with what certain companies and small businesses are able to invest in this year. That's kind of been the effort. But that's going to be something that we're kind of looking at this year and going forward. And I can't wait to bring it to you guys and build on really a library that I'm planning on doing here going forward with other books on other subjects. But glad to get that back out there. Glad to be on board. And very excited for Derek Cope this weekend and his return to the 500. But again, I can't take any credit for him returning or anything. I'd like to believe that, maybe in talking about some of these stories, because I've had at least a few hours of interviews with him in the book. And of course, his interviews are the real backbone of this story. How that's going to break down and how that's going to be put in the book there. I'm going to be very interested to see how that goes. I did send one draft of the manuscript to Alicia. She seemed pleased with it so far, which was a relief, because I think we're on the right track with it. There's still some things I need to add to it. Still some information I'd like to find to kind of flesh it out. I really want to make sure it's at least at the level of the JD book in terms of writing quality, and to cover that at the same time there. But that's really going to be a big story to certainly talk about there. So I hope you guys are excited about it as I'm excited to certainly bring it to you guys. We'll have some more information along the way, whether that's going to be in the form of other interviews or other details I'm able to kind of find there. And if you guys have any other information sources that you think should be in the book that maybe I'm not aware of, by all means share them with me. That's why I made sure I have my Twitter DMs are open. My email is on that. That's another reason I wanted to announce it this week while Cope's certainly in the news. If anybody has any other information or any other stuff like that should be kind of in there. This is kind of what I did with the JD book also that really helped to kind of get it over the line. That's kind of the phase that we're in with it now too, going forward. So that's going to be something that I think is going to be really interesting going forward. So very pleased with that so far. Again, we're at about 50,000. We're getting up towards 60,000 words. To give you a comparison on that, JD came up to about 80,000 words. So we're getting up there. It'll be a little bit of a shorter book, I think, in general, but not a short book, that's for sure. It's definitely going to be very comprehensive in a lot of different details. And Cope's career, of course, has a lot of interesting aspects to it. Of course, the 1990 Daytona 500 is going to be a big part of it, but it's not going to be the only part of it for sure. And I think that's going to be really the way that this is going to be angled. And certainly talking about this year's 500, talking about his start in Winston West, talking about even further back than that to how he got his start in racing, all of that, we're going to put in there. And it's going to be, I think, really good, again, a really good follow-up. So the working title, again, is Derek Cope Unheralded. The working cover image, I just put that together myself there with some great photographs provided by, I believe it was Jerry Hayslip, took those original photographs provided by Brian Hallman at BRH Racing Archives. Big thanks to him. Also to Charlie Birch, who you may recall from the JD book. He was also at the 1990 Daytona 500 shooting that weekend. So I did another interview with him for this project. So there'll be that kind of crossover, kind of a follow through into this book a bit as well with some of the same personalities. And there's some other people I'm looking to kind of talk to as well to keep building on that. So that's really where we're going to be with that. So again, have some more information for you guys a little bit further down the line. If you haven't seen the video already, I changed the screen cap on it. I know it was a little bit of, I was kind of hiding the ball there because I wanted to be kind of a pleasant surprise when I put the video up there. where you think it's just a Daytona 500 video, and then you think it's just a Derek Cope video, and then it turns out it's the first chapter of the book. But I've now changed the screen cap, so now it's a standalone advertisement for the video. Hope you didn't mind the little bit of chicanery I did there, but I think that I wanted to make this kind of have a little fun with the reveal there. So I hope you guys certainly enjoyed that as well. And maybe something like that will be something to look at going forward. And speaking of looking forward, I know I'm getting some comments on here about looking up the field that we're getting this weekend. Of course, 44 cars for 40 teams. Which teams are going to miss the cut? It's going to be really interesting. And certainly part of the picture is going to be solved tomorrow in qualifying. Who's going to be the fastest two of the open teams, and leaving really the final two spots to be contended for in the races here. That's going to be interesting. I mean, are we going to see? It seems like Kaz Grala in the Colleague car and Austin Cindric in the Penske car seem to be a couple of the favorites, but things could go, a completely different direction. I remember when Travis Kvapil was one of the fastest cars in qualifying when he was driving in the waning years of Yates's team, or somebody else like Brendan Gaughan or somebody like that working their way into the picture. It's going to be interesting to find out. And then, of course, that'll paint another part of the picture for Thursday and the qualifying races. I know everybody out there is excited, and I'm certainly excited to cover that for you guys too. And we'll see what interesting stats we get at both ends of the field there. Obviously, the last place finishers of the duels last year proved critical in who qualified for the race and who did not. Between Daniel Suarez and J.J. Yaley both being involved in accidents. Suarez now locked in with the Trackhouse team, and Yaley not entered in the field this year. We're going to see a bit of a different circumstance. Certainly condolences to the family of Mark Beard Sr., no relation, the gentleman behind Beard Motorsports there in the number 62. Great gesture by Noah Gragson to have Mr. Beard's name on the roof of the car there. I know that's going to be one team that's certainly to watch on Thursday. I know that Gragson will just flog that car to try to make his Cup Series debut in the 500, like Tyler Reddick was able to do a couple of years ago in the 31, or I guess that was that his debut, or did he already do Kansas by that point? It was around that time. It was one of his first starts, certainly. But that'll be one thing to certainly talk about coming up there. Let's see. We will find out. I'm just checking the comments here in the meantime. Seeing the request for the Icky Shuffle. Yeah, maybe not tonight, man. I don't know. I know that I don't want to test the microphone even more than that at the same time. Let's see. Anything else on that? Okay. All right. We'll go ahead and jump into trivia here in the meantime. If you guys have any other questions, whether it's on the race or the book or anything like that, I'll jump into this at the same time. I'll check the comments here at the same time. But in the meantime, we got Cup Series qualifying tomorrow. The duels on Thursday. I think we'll do another live stream on Thursday after the duels. Depends. It's a little tricky now that I'm working day shift here, how much time to allot to get the articles done without it being too late, and then jumping into that. But I think we might be able to squeeze one in on Thursday, maybe Saturday, but definitely Sunday for streams this week, and definitely plenty to talk about, I think, but we'll certainly find out. To lead off here on this, we'll go ahead and do the categories again. The categories on the Trivial Pursuit thing, which again is from the late 90s. For those of you who are new in here, we got 69 people in here. Nice. So we got 66. I jinxed it. So anybody who wants to follow along with the show here, we'll do some trivia questions here. This trivia device is from the late 90s, so the answers may not cover such figures as Chase Elliott or Kyle Busch. So it adds a little bit of extra challenge to this, but we do this in all of our shows. So we'll do a few questions here tonight. The categories are NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. So go ahead and make your picks for which category you'd like to do. NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. I'll just browse through here in the meantime while you guys put your picks in here. Athletic Geek 89, I see your comment there. Who is more synonymous with the number 10, Cope, Rudd, Danica, or Almirola? Hard to pick Danica or Almirola just because they're so new in that these days, and Danica I think is more recognizable with the the number 7, I think, in IndyCar, and then the first part of her Xfinity career. But then, of course, not the sole possession of it there. If you go back to the many owner drivers that have run that number over the years between Alan Kulwicki and Jeff Bodine and Robbie Gordon and so forth. I kind of think more with Rudd than with Cope. The Wickham team has very interesting history that you'll see in the Cope book there once it gets published. But Rudd's team with the Rudd Performance Motorsports thing, I remember thinking at the time that the Tide team was the same as the Wickham team, since the Wickham team closed at about the same time that Rudd's team started in 1994. So you had kind of that transition there, and you had a similar paint scheme there. Obviously, I didn't understand the concept of teams and how they were organized back then. But I always kind of identified it more with Rudd. But yeah, Cope would certainly be right up there. Nate Carter, a last place would be someone who's in the first big one. Certainly a possibility. The 500 has a lot of really unpredictable last place finishers. The number 20 seems to be the big trend. A lot of drivers, especially in the Joe Gibbs 20, have had several problems dropping them into the last spot, especially in the last 20 years, of course, when that team's existed. Tony Stewart finishing last in 2002 and 2007. Matt Kenseth more recently. Eric Jones, Joey Logano have all finished last in the 500. In fact, Logano in 2009 finished last in both the Clash and the 500 in the 20 car. So that's kind of been the unfortunate number. Christopher Bell, I guess you could say, if there was going to be a favorite, would be the one going into the 500 this time around. But just as easily could end up being in victory lane. Although, of course, Stewart had his streak without winning the 500 and so forth from there. So that'll be one interesting one to certainly talk about. Hashtag hope for Cope. I like that. Do I feel Kyle could pull off the triple? Ross Chastain fan 10. I mean, it's hard to say. It's difficult on that. I know it was interesting to see Slapshoe's video, and I think Darian over at Black Flags Matter were talking about the subject of trying to pull the triple there at the same time. I think the thing that's more impressive to me, I think it's the quadruple. That's the one I'm looking for. I'm looking for not just winning the Clash, winning a duel, and winning the 500, but also winning the pole for the 500. Because there have been drivers that have come extremely close to pulling that off. Immediately coming to mind would be Dale Jarrett in 2000. I think he was one of the most serious threats to winning it. And it's amazing the way that he managed to just come short of it. He won the Clash. He won the qualifier for the Clash. Back then, you had a qualifying race for it. He won the pole. Nobody else was even close to winning the pole for the 500. The only thing he lost the duel for his race to Bill Elliott. And only because they had that terrible aero package that year, which also helped Jarrett because they just had a great team with also Jeff Gordon's Rainbow Warriors on the pit crew, which helped out even more. But Dale Jarrett got passed by Bill Elliott on the first corner, the first lap of his duel, didn't get back around Elliott, was right behind him by less than 0.2 of a second. Otherwise, we would have had that sweep already. Dale Jarrett came extremely close. And the driver who beat him also came close. In 1987, Bill Elliott was very close to it. In fact, so close that he had a photo finish he lost to Ken Schrader in his duel, but won the 500. I think he won the pole, and I believe he won the Clash that year as well, if memory serves. I think it was 85 he lost to Neil Bonnet and then came close to sweeping the weekend that time too, because of course that was the year that he went for the Winston Million. So he won the 500 that year and his qualifying race, and I think the pole in that one also. So Bill Elliott very close in that respect as well. But Dale Jarrett's always stands out more in my mind just because it's more during my lifetime or my following of the sport. Very close. Can Kyle Busch do it? I mean, just as likely as anybody. It seemed like Denny Hamlin was going to be a favorite to do it just to get his triple header and be the first driver to get 3 500 wins in a row. But it's certainly possible. But Kyle Busch has just had so many problems with the 500, and a lot of times, I mean, again, I know this gets said a lot for drivers that have double-digit losses in the 500. A lot of times, stuff just completely out of his control, especially with tires. He's had so many tire failures. I think especially in 3 and 4, he's lost at least like 3 of them that way. It's just been just completely absurd. And then, of course, the serious injury he had at the Xfinity race that one year when they had to put Matt Crafton in the car and, wasn't able to even start at that time. He's had other ones where he's been up there and just can't quite get up there. One of the compelling stories, one of the many compelling stories on the entry list, and perhaps even more compelling now that he pulled off that victory in the Clash. So that'll be one to certainly watch. Is this going to be the deciding one? What is it? Is it his 16th this year or 17th? It's like it should be right up there. But that's going to be something else to see. Obviously, Bubba Wallace is going to be a big story with the Michael Jordan team. I think this is basically a wash with Ty Dillon tonight. I mean, they got banged around a little bit out there, but hey, they didn't finish last for whatever that's worth. So a decent start there. I think again, keep the expectations reasonable. Same thing goes for Trackhouse. Same thing goes for Live Fast with BJ McLeod and Matt Tifft. All those guys. I think especially these first few rounds. Although Daytona 500, it's easy to think, oh my gosh, this is gonna be the next big thing, but who knows? But that'll be a little bit of crossover with that as well. Let me check the categories here. Who did everybody pick on this for categories? We have tracks, wild card. Let's see, tracks. I see a few for tracks. We'll do tracks here. Let's see. Let's see. Eric Jones did do good. Yeah, tracks, I think, is a category we'll do here. We'll do a few questions on that. Yeah. By the way, don't Eric Jones cars look really nice? I think they look gorgeous. I don't know if it's just the person that photographed them or anything. I think they looked amazing. I think those are going to be really nice paint jobs. 43 is pretty much expected. It kind of reminded me of Bubba Wallace's click and close car from a couple years ago. That was okay. But especially the Armor All car, I think that's going to just look amazing. I actually made that. I think I made that my yeah, I did. I made it my wallpaper on my phone. Oh, you can't really see it. There you go. So yeah, oh, you still couldn't see it very well. But yeah, but you get the flavor of it. So we got that on that one. So we'll check that out. It almost, it's that orange, but it almost looks like a reddish. I mean, I'm colorblind. I'm not the best judge of this, but neon anything gets a vote in my book. I didn't like William Byron's car. I thought that looked terrible. They kind of had the flat black, which looked good on the 2311 car, but it didn't look very good on it didn't look good on William Byron's car. I think that was probably the most disappointing paint scheme, at least from the Clash selection that we saw tonight. Alrighty. Let's see. We're doing tracks. That's right. Alrighty. Let's see. Here we go. All right, here we go. First question of the night. Who was the first Japanese-American driver invited to race at Suzuka? Oh, now that's a tricky one. Think back to the exhibition races there. Who was the first Japanese-American driver invited to race at Suzuka? There you go. So don't look it up. Just go ahead and try to guess. You know, and jump right into that. Kurt Busch's car looked nice. Yes, it did. I'd have to agree. Yeah, love the Armor All car, though. I'm really anxious to see what that looks like in qualifying. That's going to be really good. You bring up Ken Schrader in 1989. Jack Garland, very good point. Yes, Schrader very close, especially Schrader's 3 straight poles in the 500. Another aspect of his career that doesn't get talked about that much. He was very impressive. Also figures into the story with the Cope book, of course, because that was part of that streak. So that'll be one to talk about. Who was the first Japanese-American driver invited to race at Suzuka? We got guesses for Tsuchiya and Hideo Fukuyama and Takuma Koga. All righty, here we go. Taro Sugimoto. I'm not sure if that's one there, Beast of Metal. You're just trying to challenge me again there, but that is A-okay. All righty, and the answer is John Kinder. What? Okay. Did I not read? Okay, now I got to reread the question. Who was the first Japanese-American driver invited to race at Suzuka? And it says John Kinder. Okay. Was he in the field? I got to look at the list. Hang on. We're going to do a little research here. That doesn't sound right. When I first read that, I was thinking like the Flagman from years ago. Was there a John Kinder in the exhibition race? I mean, you want to talk about something that'll stump you on any game show. Oh, from Santa Ana. How about that? Uh, there you go. 1997 NASCAR Thunder Special Suzuka. Of course, well, that's 97. The Suzuka Special was in 96. I guess maybe he didn't qualify. Hang on. Wait a minute. Yeah, he drove for the Midgley team, the Winston West team. Yeah, the 08 car. He finished 17th in 97. Okay. Was he not entered in 96? I got to look that up. Hang on. Hang on. There's Fast Masters. Busch Clash. Qualifying races. How am I not? Okay, there we go. Yeah, 1996 Suzuka Special. I mean, I guess you could be invited, but not actually entered in the race. Okay, I don't see a DNQ list. Man, wouldn't that be terrible? You go all the way to Japan, then you don't qualify. I mean, it's like Formula One stuff. I don't see a John Kinder on. There's Joe Bean. Okay, it's by last name. Yeah, Jay. Yeah, he must have declined the invitation. Now that's a trick question. He's not even on the. Yeah, he's not on the list for the '96 race. So that's bizarre. Yeah, John Kinder. Yeah, I guess no Japanese Americans were invited in '96. Oh, well, yeah, I guess that's the point. Huh. Well, okay. Well, hey, you learn something new every day. John Kinder. All righty. Okay. Here's a little bit of, maybe perhaps a little easier of one. What make and model was the official pace car at the 1997 Daytona 500? What make and model was the official pace car at the 1997 Daytona 500? Yeah, that's a hard one. That last one, rather. Seeing a comment on here, how did Ty Dillon do? He did okay. He didn't do bad, but he wasn't a factor for the win, but he was racing there. He was there. Very good camera work by the Fox crew. After NBC seemed to shoot this race last year, which I think is one of the reasons that it was kind of a boring race. I thought Fox did a very good job covering this one. Certainly having the at-track personalities actually at the track, I'm sure helps that quite a bit. But I thought they did a very good job. So kudos to Fox. Credit where credit's due. As hard as I am on them, when they do well, I'll certainly be. I'm not going to be petty enough to not acknowledge that. So there you go. What make and model was the 97 Daytona 500? The correct answer is the Pontiac Grand Prix. I think several of you got that. Pontiac Grand Prix. Pontiac Grand Prix. It occurred to me that it was silly to move the chair here because you can still see the quilt here to the side. So I think we'll just kind of use this angle. You can see a little bit more of the rule of thirds not necessarily being followed as best as possible, but you got this stuff over here and you got this over here. So that kind of works. All right. Next question. What dapper driver started 54 of Michigan's first 55 races, yet had no wins? I'll read that one again. What dapper driver started 54 of Michigan's 5 races, yet had no wins? So don't look it up. Just go ahead and guess. Yeah, Fox stepped up. Agreed. I also like the graphics. I like the graphics on the side with the car numbers. I hope they do it halfway and it's not as good, then I think that would look terrible. So if they're taking if they're going the extra mile and showing the car numbers, I think that makes that a little more appealing to look at. And maybe people that aren't as crazy about that form of the leaderboard will kind of come around to it. I liked it. I found it very helpful during the race too, quite honestly, because you're literally seeing the car number move up in like a Herbie the Love Bug kind of way when they use the little. Okay, this is going way too far afield. But you remember, like, it was in the first Herbie movie where they had the map and it was basically like one big ring, and then they actually used like little cars to show like where everybody was running and where they were on the track. I thought that was great, but I don't know, something closer to that. Like, this seemed like the digital equivalent of that, so I was fine with that. Alrighty, what dapper driver? Dapper, the important word there. Started 54 of Michigan's first 55 races, yet had no wins. We got several guesses here. Harry Gant, Dave Marcus, Ned Jarrett, DW. JD McDuffie, Harry Gant. Let's see. And the answer is Dave Marcus. Dave Marcus. Yep. The Dapper seem to be indicating the wingtips. You're right about that, Joey. Fairbanks. I got you there. How was Clint in the booth? Again, I talked about that a little bit earlier, Brennan. I'd say he was doing pretty good. He wasn't a distraction. I think that's the best way he could be here for sure. I know I've not given those of you who are the moderators here in the chat. I know I'm not really giving you guys enough pointers on that. That's about the only thing that I'm worried about in the chat is just don't be distracting. You can say whatever. I'm not worried about that. But yeah, so that's the only thing I'm worried about. No problems tonight. I'm not seeing any issues there. So we're all good there. But I think that's the same thing I apply to Boyer on that. I think he was not distracting to the broadcast. I thought that was fine. So he did a good job there. Yeah, you don't think of wingtips as dapper though. Yeah, no, I'm with the Ultimate 23. That's a point. So that's kind of that. All right. Ooh, okay, here we go. Here's a question I like. Which turn at Sears Point, it says Sears Point, thank goodness. Which turn at Sears Point circles around the Tower Suites? Which turn at Sears Point circles around the Tower Suites? That's one that, takes a little bit, it kind of takes me aback a little bit. That's not a term I'm used to hearing at Sears Point as much. The Tower Suites. Which turn at Sears Point circles around the Tower Suites? I guess there's only a few realistic options, but there you go. Which turn at Sears Point circles around the Tower Suites? Yep, there it is. For those of you wondering at home, I did indeed bring one of these back out again. Ah, yes. Flavor Country. And now I put my phone in the wrong spot. Okay. Alrighty. Which turn at Sears Point circles around the Tower Suites? We got guesses for 11, 7, 10, 7, the carousel. There you go. All good guesses. All good guesses. Is that building part at the start of the drag strip? It's not giving me that information. Which turn at Sears Point circles around the Tower Suites? The answer is indeed turn 11. Most of you got that. Turn 11. I've been binging the Carmen Sandiego cartoon on Netflix. I was very suspicious of it because the first, I guess you could say, the first season I wasn't sold on it. I thought it was kind of middle of the road. But I got to say, I mean, we're now at the beginning of the third season. That I'm kind of hooked. So decent job. I like the style in it. It makes me miss the game show though. I will say that the game show was so much fun. The woman who was the chief was like the best part. I think she passed away a few years after, but yeah, that was pretty good. All right, here we go. Next question. What three drivers? What three drivers had their pole speeds disqualified in a 1976 Daytona scandal? Ooh, this is a well-timed question. A disqualification question, if you will. I think I know the answer to this one, but it's all three of them. I think I got two of them, but which three drivers had their pole speeds disqualified in a 1976 Daytona scandal? Yeah, very interesting. So don't look it up. Go ahead and just guess. We're looking for three names. We want three names. Lynn Thigpen. That's right. Yeah, R.D. Fox. Absolutely. Yeah, she was amazing. They cast somebody in the cartoon that almost sounds like her, but of course nobody can sound like her. That's the big difference. So yeah. What three drivers had their pole speeds disqualified in a 1976 Daytona scandal? They need to make more references to the game show in the cartoon, though. That would be better because, it's kind of like the Battleship movie. Like that movie is terrible, but at least it references the game a lot, which is fun. And then it has like the most American scene possible at the very end. I won't spoil it, but if you do a YouTube search for the movie Battleship, it'll show you the best part. There's 3 minutes that's worth seeing, and the remaining 120 that's just not. So, yeah. Alrighty. Which three drivers had their pole speeds disqualified in a 1976 Daytona scandal? All right. We got Foyt, Waltrip, and Marcus. We got Waltrip, Petty, Allison, and Foyt. Daryl, Foyt, and Marcus. Allison, Waltrip, and Petty. Cecil, Gordon, Yarborough, and Parsons. Yarborough, Waltrip, and Petty. This is no laughing matter. The ACDC scene? Wait, what are you talking about? Yeah, the Carmen Sandiego one's it's like a new cartoon. I think it came out last year. I don't think it's maybe not brand new, but yeah. Oh, Battleship, yeah. Brennan, I'm confused. You confused me there, Brandon. What's no laughing matter? If we're talking about Battleship, if you like the movie, that's fine, man. But that's I don't. I thought it was it was forgettable except for one scene, but that's fine. Was that one the good one? I don't know. I don't know. Uh, oh, the ACDC scene. Yes, RD. Yeah, you got me right. Yep, exactly. Yep, you hit on the nose, RD Fox. That's exactly it. That's the scene. Oh yes, oh yes. That was right up there with that scene. And if you ever see the Pearl Harbor one, the Pearl Harbor movie they made in 2001, which is also terrible, but there's a scene in that where like John Voight plays FDR and he gets out of the wheelchair. Like that's like the best scene in that one. That one also has like 3 minutes that's worth seeing, and well, actually that was like 10 seconds that's worth seeing, and the rest of it's not worth seeing. But the same kind of movie there. What three drivers had their pole speeds disqualified in 1976 Daytona scandal? That's the one. And the answer is AJ Foyt, Darrell Waltrip, and Dave Marcus. Foyt, Waltrip, and Marcus. I think Maserati 9. I think you got that like right away. Oh, Croman Experience. I think you got it first. You were like just ahead of them there. Good on you, Croman Experience. Right on it. It's like a few of you got that there. Right on. It paid for the Missouri's dry docking. I didn't know that. Okay, right on. Well, okay, some good came out of it. That's good to know. A lot of history. There's been a lot of discussion about history and forgetting history and tearing stuff down and all that. There's a lot of history that needs to be preserved, and the Missouri is certainly one of those. Never been there myself. I've been to the Pearl Harbor Memorial, the Arizona Memorial. Profound experience for sure. Never been on the Missouri though. The Missouri wasn't out there at the time that we went out there, but I imagine it'd be a tremendous experience for sure. Da, 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 da. Ramos Stott was the pole sitter with Norris Reed. Right on, Croman Experience. There you go. All right, here we go. Next question. Who won the 1950 Southern 500 despite being the slowest qualifier? Who won the 1950 Southern 500 despite being the slowest qualifier? Now, I'm not sure if that's true. I think that's a casual inaccuracy that most people reference when it comes to this race. Let me look that up again. Because this is something that this comes up over and over and over again. And I see this a lot in the NASCAR stuff too. Johnny Mance, I'm gonna go ahead and spoil it. Yeah, it was Johnny Mance. But that's the answer they always give there on this. That it's like Johnny Mance started 43rd in the Southern 500 and won the race on truck tires. It's like, okay, well, there weren't just 43 cars in that one. There were 75 cars in that one. I don't think he was the slowest qualifier. If he was the slowest qualifier, he shouldn't have started, in that. Or did he start? Yeah, no, he started 75th. Yeah, he started 43rd. The 75th place starter was, now I don't know that offhand. I got to look this up. I'm definitely pulling the page up. Who was the 75th place starter? Roland Smith was the 74th place starter. Was Jesse James Taylor, who finished 44th, was the 75th place starter in a 1950 Mercury. I'm sure they did multiple rounds of qualifying, but did they actually know that Johnny Mance was the slowest qualifier? I'm not sure if they do. I've always assumed that they just conclude that he was because they thought there were 43 cars back then, and that 43 cars has been the tradition for all of time, but that's just not the case. I mean, NASCAR is not the Indy 500 in that respect. Who won the NASCAR award for that race? Very good question. That was Roscoe Thompson in a 1949 Oldsmobile after 24 laps. I had to look at the results page here on that one. Do I have? Let me get the actual stat page to pull that up and sync that up with it. Let's get up here. 1950. There it is. Roscoe Thompson, his first last place finish, 24 laps. Fell out of the race in 1949 Oldsmobile. And yeah, it shows it with overheating issues being the reason there. Which I don't think is classified on my chart there, so I may have to update that as well. But yeah, it's so ingrained in, yeah, exactly. It's always listed as Johnny's the slowest qualifier, but yeah, again, it's this is what's important with history. You know, you can't always apply modern sensibilities to past history. You know, you'll think that 40 to 43 cars has always been the standard. You've had as few as, like, I think 18 cars at one point, and as many as 82. It got talked about at the Field Filler series. You know, it's sometimes it takes that little extra step to get the fact there, and it's a little disappointing that this is falling into that too. All right, we'll do a couple more questions here. We'll probably wrap up for tonight here, so I can get the article finished up for you guys. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. This is a lot for a Busch Clash show, so thank you everyone who's joined on board here. Oh, the Iowas in San Pedro. I didn't know that, RD Fox. Right on. I've been to San Pedro. The other thing that's in San Pedro is the model of the Queen Mary that they used for the capsizing scenes in the Poseidon Adventure. That's actually in San Pedro also. I haven't been to the Iowa though. That's cool. Right on. Yeah, Tuesday night as well. Yeah, it feels like a Saturday night. It really does. I got to remind myself I got work tomorrow. All right, here we go. Not that one. What Air Force base is nestled next to Las Vegas Motor Speedway? Got our military question. What Air Force base is nestled next to Las Vegas Motor Speedway? Did they qualify 43 and start more? That's a good question too, Valve GT. I'm not sure. I have a program from, I think, the 49 Southern 500, or I guess it wouldn't be 49. I guess it'd be the 50. It was something in the 50s for sure. But it might be the one that had the 82 cars in it, not the inaugural one with 75. Yeah, I guess, yeah, it wouldn't be. There's no Southern 500 1949. But yeah, see, this is where it gets tricky to remember the stats there for sure. But yeah. All right, we got several guesses for Nellis. I think you guys are right, and indeed you guys are. The answer is Nellis. There you go. Nellis Air Force Base. Starship Enterprise. There you go. It is the Nellis straightaway. That's right. Good call, Flash Energy Cup Series. Alrighty. Not that one. That's a little too easy. Ooh, here we go. How many cars? We're looking for a number. So get your keypads ready for this one. How many cars finished on the lead lap at the inaugural Brickyard 400? How many cars finished on the lead lap at the inaugural Brickyard 400? It was on the FV Orca, but that wasn't big enough. Wow. FV, I'm not familiar with that, Jolly Jake Lavelle. What's I assume in military terminology, or is that oceanographic ship, or I'm not familiar with that. I'm genuinely curious. It sounds awesome though. Let's see. How many cars finished on the lead lap at the inaugural Brickyard 400? We got some low guesses. We got some high ones. Fishing vessel. Okay, right on. There you go. Again, learned a couple things today for sure. Right on. 21, 18, all 43, 25, 13, 8. What's is 6? Going by Price is Right rules. Who can get the closest without going over? Or unless you can get exactly the number, I guess. 14, 12. Alrighty. How many cars finished on the lead lap at the inaugural Brickyard 400? And the answer is 16. The asking price is 16. I got a few people with 15. I see Andrew Hayes got 15. Croman Experience got 15. Maserati 9 had 16. Looks like you were right on the button. There you go. $1. Exactly. Alrighty. Let's see. And okay. Here we go. Okay, one more question for tonight. Last question for tonight. Here we go. What 15.99 right on. What Midwest state is home for Crawford County Speedway and West Liberty Raceway? I'll read that again. What Midwest state, looking for a state name, is home for Crawford County Speedway and West Liberty Raceway? I think we might have had this one before for longtime viewers of the show, so you might have an advantage here, but we'll definitely have this one here. What Midwest state is home for Crawford County Speedway and West Liberty Raceway? Okay, we got guesses for Nebraska, Indiana, Kansas, Iowa. Okay, don't look it up. Go ahead and just guess. You got Georgia, USA. Nathaniel, you're casting the broadest net of all. What Midwest state is home for Crawford County Speedway and West Liberty Raceway? I'll let a few more votes come in for sure. Camden Murphy still looking for a Truck Series ride on Twitter here. Well, fingers crossed. He always has an interesting story. He's a good follower of the NASCAR site there too. Who said Georgia? Good old Georgia, right in the Midwest. Well, at least you're guessing states. That's fine. All right, 1601. There you go. What Midwest state is home for Crawford County Speedway and West Liberty Raceway? Okay, last question of the night. Answer coming right up. The answer is Iowa. Iowa is the correct answer. Nick Earl, I think you got it. Did anybody else get it? Flash Energy Cup Series, you were earlier. Flash Energy Cup Series, I think you were the first one on that one. So many people picked Indiana. I thought you guys were right for sure. It tricked me. Iowa is indeed the correct one. You don't remember the question, Beast of Metal? Okay, maybe it was a new one. Well, there you go. Crawford County, Iowa, apparently. So there you go. So there's your last one. Nathaniel Ivey, did you? Well, yeah, you technically get it, I guess. But come on, even that was after Flash Energy Cup Series. No, he's got that one. Alrighty. Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in there. I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go for the night. Again, we'll probably do a couple more streams this week at the latest. Of course, we'll do one after the 500. We'll kind of play it by ear between now and then. But again, hope you enjoyed the action tonight. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you for the super chats as well. And we'll have some more content for you, both on the website and, again, trying to squeeze in a starting grid this week. By Saturday at the latest, we'll get that put together. And we'll go from there. So again, thank you so much for everyone for tuning in. You have a safe night, everyone, and enjoy qualifying and the duels. And we'll find out. Take one step closer to find out who's going to win the 500. So enjoy the week, everyone. I'll see you next time.